Today's video will be different from the current situation. Let us rewind back a while, go to the other side of the world, and talk about how India's aviation industry has changed throughout the decades. The Indian aviation market has been an aviation market around the world that has especially gone through lots and lots of changes over the past years. This has to do mostly with the development of India. Let us go back 1 century. If you guys already didn't know, Air India is the flag carrier and the government airline of India. Before the 2000s, Air India was thriving. All the rich people in India used to fly this thriving airline back in the day. But now things have changed. Everything started going downhill from there for Air India. Since the early 2000s, Air India has been losing millions and millions of dollars annually, and it has been resorting to privatization. 20 years later, the situation still stands. Air India wouldn't be flying today if it weren't for the government sucking in the millions and millions of losses caused by the airline. Air India is the last major airline left in India that flies all over the world, and it is vital to the nation for a few reasons. These include providing for the poor villages in India. Not all flights are profitable. All over the world, governments pay airlines compensating them for their losses so that they serve small communities in their country. This is very important because there's a direct link between transportation and poverty. In India, there are 73 million people who live in extreme poverty. There are countless studies that show that the increase in transportation is what gives people a path out of poverty. Governments all over the world should make sure that there are flights to small cities around the world so that people in small villages and rural farmlands have access to transportation to get better opportunities in big cities. There are also many more reasons that it is important to have an airline like Air India standing. If Air India falls, there will be no more Indian link to the outside world. Air India is the only major international airline left in India, and if it falls, it will result in countless impacts such as the Indian people having a harder time to travel because of the language barrier caused by the need to take foreign airlines. This is the story of Air India, an airline that would have been bankrupt years ago if it weren't for the government. They have recently sold their Boeing 787 Dreamliners and leased them back for cash, a move that is only done for short-term cash, but in reality it's very, very bad for the long term as more in lease payments will be given over time. Now let's talk about another airline who had the scale of Air India, flying all over the world, who just fell last year due to the similar reasons of Air India. Jet Airways. Jet Airways was a very big airline. It was an airline that flew all around the world. Jet Airways was founded in 1994. It quickly spread all around the world and became a worldwide airline. Things weren't looking good as the 2010s approached. Jet Airways began to cut their international operations, and they started leasing out their Boeing 777s to Etihad as they cut capacity. On the 17th of April last year, the unthinkable happened. Jet Airways has ceased all operations, and its assets were given to pay for its debt. This left Air India as the sole major international operator of India. So you might ask, why did this all happen? Isn't India industrializing? Isn't India's aviation industry growing? Isn't demand increasing? Well, the short answer is yes. Here, on the page with all the other airlines in India, you can see all but Air India was created after 2005. This is because the market has changed. The one-word answer is budget airlines. India, being a nation with cheap labor, over 1 billion people, and many people who aren't that wealthy, is a country that works very well with budget airlines. India is not necessarily a rich country, and what these budget airlines such as Indigo, Go Air, AirAsia India, and SpiceJet have done is change the market. They are offering fares about 3 times cheaper than the legacy carriers such as Air India, and in many cases even more than 3 times cheaper, and driving these legacy airlines out of the way. Budget airlines try when planes are full, and because in a place like India, the low fares themselves create demand. In India, not everybody has a lot of money, meaning that low fares will open up more demand for traveling. Indigo, a new budget airline in India that isn't even 15 years old yet, has already taken the spot of the biggest airline in India, has 261 aircraft, and has a whopping order for 643 more. This means that Indigo will have 5 times as many aircraft as Air India once their orders are delivered. Budget airlines have razor-thin margins. This means that budget airlines can operate flights to small towns as the only way they make money is by filling up their planes, which is very hard to do in routes with less demand. Another thing is that these budget airlines fly flights under 5 hours, which is the maximum range of the narrow-body aircraft these budget airlines fly. Long-haul budget travel hasn't hit the masses yet, and the simple fact is that these budget airlines are driving out the bigger airlines in the domestic flights, which leads them to losses and cease all operations. There are many benefits to this, but are the benefits worth the poor people in rural villages in India not getting transportation to find better work? And is it worth Indian people not being able to travel abroad because of the language barrier? Well, that's up to you to decide. But for me, the answer is no. I believe that the Indian government needs to do something and restore Air India for the better. This doesn't mean budget airlines can't exist. It means they have to exist in harmony like they do all around the world. Well, until then, stay safe. Stay tuned for part 2 next week. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please note that the clips used in this video aren't mine and the sources have been listed. Thank you.